All right, let's get into the Word. Let's go to Psalm 37. We'll be reading verses 3 through 7. And it says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord." That word, if you look it up, look into it, it's to take exquisite delight. I love that. It's just like, it's taking delight, but let's go way further and take exquisite delight in the Lord. So take exquisite delight in the Lord, and He will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything that you do to the Lord. Trust Him, and He will help you. Trust Him, and He will help you. He will make your innocence radiate like the dawn, and the justice of your cause will shine like the noonday sun. Be still in the presence of the Lord, and wait patiently for Him to act. Don't worry about evil people who prosper or fret about their wicked schemes. Trust in the Lord and do good. Trust in Him. Commit everything that you are, all of you, to Him. Take delight in Him. Be still. I love this scripture. I love what it says, and I actually think like, yes, that's exactly how I want to live, what I want to do. I want to present myself to Him in that way and just trust Him and delight myself in Him, to be still, to allow Him to move. And it's not me doing it, me creating something or moving things around the way that I want to. But that's not always how it ends up working out, right? And God's been speaking to me through Bonsai lately. And so Pastor Matt and I are pretty into bonsais. It's really cool to, take this tree and, help it to grow and to shape it into what it looks like or was supposed to look like. But it's really interesting because God really has been speaking to me through it and kind of showing me how we take too much control. And so I actually was at the hardware store with my daughter a while back. And, they have plants, all these things, and they had this bonsai tree. And it was under this shelf, and it was all dying, and the leaves falling off, and I'm like, I'm getting that thing. I'm going to save it, I'm going to save that tree. And so I ended up buying it and bringing it home, and literally every single, actually there was 2, maybe 3 leaves that weren't fully dead, dry, just falling off the tree. And so I brought it home and tried to do what I could and water it, and actually they were over-watering it, not getting the right sunlight and all that. And so I was I'm going to take care of this. I get to, take the dead leaves off, and I get to water it and just the right amount and put it in the right amount of sun. And actually, Pastor Tori was just okay, maybe this is going a little bit too far. When I took an old fish tank that we had, just one of those small ones, and one of those lights, that go for little creatures, that give the UV and give the sunlight, but it's indoors. And I put this tree in the the little fish tank and put the light over it so it could get the UV rays and all this stuff. And I was just like, I was doing it, right? And so I have a picture of slide 1, I think. This is that's she's a beaut. That's the tree. Now, it's doing pretty good, doing well. All those leaves new, and it's growing. See all that new growth in there, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud of myself. Like, it didn't have any leaves at all. Like, and I was able to come in and help it and give it what it needed so it could be what it's supposed to be. Let's look at, oh man, look at that. Wow. Okay. What did I name it? I don't have a name for it. Not yet. Anybody else into bonsai or have a bonsai tree? Just me and Pastor Matt. Just me and Pastor Matt. You're all going to go out and get one. But listen, let me tell you, it's not easy. And I think that's probably, I think for both of us too, it's probably one of the things about it is that it's not easy. It's hard. Like, there's work, but then also like you have to do it the right way in order to not kill it. And so eventually this tree will hopefully grow to be a tree that looks like an old grown tree. And so there's a slide 2, there's a picture of there you go. That looks like it's been around for 200 years, right? This is not my tree, but what I want it to look like, right? But the whole point of this really is to say that, so the point of bonsai is to take a tree and manipulate it in a way where you are doing all the work to create this little miniature version of a tree that doesn't look like a little twig, which is what really kind of happens when you just have a little tree. It's usually just a little twig, but you can manipulate it in a way to where it looks like it's mature, to where it looks like it has all this age and has gone through all these years and years and years of experience and growth and all these things. But it's a little bitty tree. It's just this thing that you have done in order to make this tree look like what a giant, big old tree out in nature would look like. And I felt God just kind of speaking to me saying, that's really, and I'll say it how he said it to me, but then it's also, I believe, just for all of us, it's just like, this is how you treat your life. You want to look like that big old tree. You want to have that maturity and those years of experience, or at least look like that you have those years of experience, and the crevices, the knobs, all the things that mean that you've gone through the stuff. But really, you are manipulating and creating that. And now I'm not saying like I'm just like, he was just showing me a picture of what we do. He says, you want to be planted in this little bonsai pot so that you can water, you can fertilize, you can affect and manipulate the way that the branches go. to where it looks perfectly like you want it to. He said, what if you were planted out in the field that I want you to be in? What if you were planted out in my garden, in my place that I want you to be planted? There's a couple of terms that they use in bonsai, and one is ramification, and which means that you take and you clip the branches in a way to manipulate them. Because what you want to do is you want to keep the bigger branches, thicker ones, to grow real thick but short. So you grow the little smaller branches out, and then you clip those so that they're short but get thicker, and then little branches on that. So that really what happens is you have this dense foliage, these dense branches that don't really go out very far, but they have just the right look, and there's something called gin, which is where you take and peel the bark back from a branch or a part of the trunk that is, sticking out, and instead of just cutting that thing off, you peel it back, and so that it doesn't continue to grow, and what happens is it gets weathered, and it looks like an old dead branch, like, man, this is, it got struck by lightning or something. It's something really, really tough happened to this branch. It went through a lot. But in reality, it was just that, somebody pulled the bark back from it and made a couple of marks in it so that it looked like this piece that had broken off and this branch died off. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but it's a term called yosei-yu. As forest planting. And this is really interesting because they actually take and plant the tree, the bonsai tree, into this place that it's a forest. They want to put it in to where it looks like it's in its natural habitat, even though it's not. Like it's in a forest. It's not this lone tree. I got people with me. I got all this, these trees beside me. But in reality, it's still in a pot. In reality, it's still being manipulated by not its creator, but by the one that took it out of the place that it should be in. Ooh. See, what happened with us as we come to know Christ is he actually took us out of that old mess, that dirt, that sin, that shame. He took us out of that place that really we were just getting. Imagine if we were a tree, our roots were planted in filthy soil that wasn't giving us the nutrients and the things that we need. We were planted in sin and shame. And he says, I want to take you out of that. So what I'm doing is I'm giving myself for you that you could be planted in me. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and life. I can give you everything that you need. In Galatians 2:20, Paul says, my old self, this is a New Living Translation, my old self has been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting or having faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. This is, I've been crucified. And this word, be crucified along with, it's the word that they use, not for the one crucified, but to be crucified along with somebody. And meaning the death of Christ upon the cross has wrought the extinction of our former corruption. And that we've become, how it says it, utterly estranged or dead to my former habits or feelings or actions. I love that. Utterly estranged from that former life, that former self. To be planted in the family of God. To be where he wants us. It's our natural, look at this. I even, if you will, I can take and say that our natural habitat is to be planted in the family of God with him. Him giving us what we need. But actually, because of sin, we were ripped out and put in to an unnatural space. A space that we weren't actually created for, but sin put us there. He says, I want to put you back. That's what he did. He says, I want to put you back in the soil that I created you for. Paul had just said that he had died to the law, and I imagine he's saying like, well, when people are thinking like, when did you die to the law? And he's like, listen, I'm going to tell you. It was when I was crucified with Christ. When did you die to all that sin and shame or that mess? When I was crucified with Christ. He says, and now I live in this earthly body, in this flesh that I now live in. I live by trusting or in faith in the Son of God. Because he loved me so much, because he cared so much that he gave himself for me. As I've been researching taking care of bonsai trees or helping them to grow or whatever, and you see guys and they say, actually what you should do is they do the best if you actually plant them in the ground. Because that's where they're supposed to be, right? It's like actually plant them in the dirt, outside. Where they were created for. Well, the only problem with this scenario is you're doing it for your own gain, like so that they can still manipulate it. Like, I'm going to use the dirt, but I'm still going to manipulate the tree. And then I'm going to rip it back out whenever it looks like what I want it to look like, to put it back in the pot that I have. I feel like so many times, that's really what I feel like God is speaking, is like, look, we feel like we've been planted outside, out in nature, out in the ground. We're here in the body of Christ. But how much are we still trying to manipulate the branches? How much are we trying to trim and do that ramification and splitting the branches to get it to look like just how we want it? I feel this about just the church in general, not talking personally. We say, oh no, God, this is your soil that I'm planted in. But then we're still trying. If you remember that the picture of my bonsai, and you put these wires around it and you bend them. Why? Because the branches just go any way they want, right? If you don't control that, and what you want to do is you want to make that tree look like it's got heavy weight on it, man. And it's like you got to bend those things down to make it look like it's old and mature. And I just think, God, how much are we actually putting wire around your branches? How much are we trying to divert or maneuver what you're wanting to do with the wire that we're putting on it? What Paul says, the life that I now live in this earthly body, but the life that I now live in this earthly body, I live trusting in God, in faith, allowing Him to direct my steps, allowing Him to lead and guide me, not me manipulating where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do, or telling God what I want, but just allowing Him to move me. That's the life that I want to live. He says in verse 21, Galatians 2:21, I do not treat the grace of God as meaningless. Man. I do not treat the grace of God as meaningless. For if keeping the law could make us right with God, then there was no need for Christ to die. He says, I don't want to treat the grace of God, the grace that has so mercifully come to take us out of that old messy place that we were in, to be planted in His body with Him. We don't take that for granted. Because if there was a way that somehow we could control, and by us manipulating or doing things in the right way, if there was a way that could happen, or by following the law, I'm not stealing, I'm not killing, I'm not, committing adultery, I'm not doing any of these. Well, look at that. I'm following the law. But he says, but if that worked to save us, then why did Christ come? He said He came because that didn't actually get us to the place that we needed with Him, to bring us into this relationship. That didn't work. But Christ had to come so that we could be saved. Now, hit me. This hits. I don't know about you, but it hits me hard. He says, I don't treat the grace of God as meaningless. Do we ever ask ourselves, God, are we treating your grace as meaningless in any ways in our lives? God, show me if there are ways that I'm treating the grace and mercy that you've shown me with disrespect or in a way that means that it doesn't hold the weight that it should in my life. Proverbs 3, starting in verse 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. How much of it? All of it. Not holding back anything, not reserving any spaces to not trust God and to trust ourselves. But trust in the Lord with all your heart. And lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. How many want health in our flesh and strength in our bones? I do. And I know that I go try to work out some to try to get strength in my body. But have I neglected the strength that he gives to my body, to my flesh? Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It'd be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. How much are we trusting in him? How much are we just leaning on him? Are we planted? Are we rooted in that place that he wants us to be? I just think when you take a bonsai tree and you put it in a pot, put it in with it, what's called substrates, the soil, but it's not soil. It's actually different kinds of rock and different things because you don't want too much water to get in, to sit there. It can actually affect, because you are manipulating things so much. If there's too much water that sit around the roots, it can kill the roots, it can make them rot, and all this different stuff. But I'm thinking, God, how amazing is it that when a tree that you've created is just out there. I don't know about you guys, but I love being in a forest, in trees, just walking around, whatever, hammock, between two trees. Is that the best thing ever? Come on. But a tree that's out there where it should be, in the place that God created it for, what worry does it have? Because God is watering it. God's giving it the nutrients that it needs. He's giving it the sunlight. I don't have to put that little fish tank around that tree that's outside in the forest or put that UV light over it, because God's giving it everything that it needs. And it's just growing. and getting stronger and more mature. You know what happens in those trees that you go out and they're big and beautiful and there's this canopy and it provides shade and home and food and all the things that is needed for nature around it. Think about that. My little tree, it just looks kind of good. But it's not giving to anybody else. It's not providing shelter or shade for anything else. It's not giving off any fruit or anything that's needed. It just looks good. I don't want to just look good. I don't want us to just look good. I want to be that mature tree. I want to be, planted where he has us, where he wants us. He's giving us everything that we need, and then in return, we can be so much to so many others around us. That's what he's created us for. Just stand with me.